Welcome to the Real Momentum Podcast. It's Joe Herrera in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. Episode probably 8 or 9 now. We've been doing this for a while. I'm with my guy, Brendan King.
What's
He's
up,
got
Joe?
What's up, man?
I like the little addition of fabulous. I agree with you.
I took that from the Killers. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like
yeah,
they always, whenever they introduce themselves, they always say they're from fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada.
I like
Just
it.
got back from Costa Rica, which made. What's funny is the older I get, the less of an international traveler I am.
I just talked to Taylor right before we got on this call, on this podcast. So he told me what you guys dealt with.
Well, we left a good man behind. My dad, who's a former Marine, would be so ashamed if he knew I left Taylor in Costa Rica. But it's if you test positive, you're down there for 10 days. So
I literally just got off the phone with him like 10 minutes ago. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe you're stuck there.
Well, Brendan, I've known you for a while, man. I admired your business. You and I are collaboration partners. We work together on a lot of ideas and concepts. But just for people who may not know you or know much about you, so you come from back east, grew up in Jersey,
Yep.
theatrical background. So talk a
Mhm.
little bit about where you come from and kind of your pre-real estate history.
Sure, yeah. Sometimes it feels like eons ago, even though it was only a few years ago. Yeah, originally from the East Coast, from New Jersey. Uh, Grew up in a family where my mom owned a bunch of dance studios, and my brothers and my sister and I, we all grew up dancing. And my brothers and I thought every boy danced, and we realized at one point that we
The
were
good
the
ones
only.
do, actually.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
we were like, hey, we're the only ones, but. And then it was kind of nice because then it got a lot of boys to join. But yeah, we grew up in a dance studio. My dad went to St. John's, ran track. So we all, as boys, we were all good athletes, and we all danced. And my mom and dad kept us busy all the time. My dad did real estate; he was in sales. So honestly, I feel like half the reason why I keep myself busy this time period of my life is because I don't think I ever stopped as a kid ever. But yeah. Grew up in Jersey, doing everything from dance to track and field to soccer, and then went to Rutgers on a track and field scholarship. Dropped entertainment completely, and just said I'm going to go on a track scholarship and study biology.
Huh.
And all my entertainment friends were like, "What? You were going to do what?" And because I grew up around it, I wanted something different for a little bit, and then
So were you thinking medical school then was the direction you were going to go?
you know what? I was super because of sports and being a physical human being, like just loving movement and in all forms, whether it was athletics or arts. I just appreciated movement, and I was actually studying exercise science with a focus in like really understanding the human body to improve athletics. Just thought it was really interesting, like how someone can do really particular things to get the best part of their strength or their VO2 max or whatever it was. Something I just always thought I was fascinated about. And then I went to a physical therapy office, and I kind of, as sophomore year, saw what the like space was like where I would have to work. And suddenly all this information and what I wanted to do kind of got a little blurred because I was like, I'm going to be in one room every day and in
Walking
the
from
same
bed to bed
place.
to bed. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, whatever it was. So it didn't, the interest kind of waned a little. And I had a lot of entertainment opportunities that were constantly coming, people hitting me up. Because of the experience my brothers and my sister and I had as a kid, we were all
Yeah,
quite good.
so were you like ballroom tap, jazz,
Uh,
clogging,
Honestly,
crumping? Like what was your
I
background?
appreciate my mom. She literally put us in everything, and whatever stuck to the wall stayed, and whatever didn't. Like one brother got out of some things. I did tap, ballet, jazz, acrobatics, hip hop, and then later in my career, I ended up doing all those different things in different ways, which so it made me quite diverse, which I'm
Mm,
thankful for. So I
yeah.
got a chance to do literally everything. But yeah, we grew up like we had sleepovers at the dance studio with 40 people because
It
no
was probably
house.
a great way to meet girls back in the day, right?
So when you go to a dance competition, the odds are like 300 to 1.
Yeah.
So
My
yes, it was.
17-year-old, if he's watching this, is probably gonna be like, Dad, I want to get
Yeah.
into dance.
So yeah, you better start taking tap or ballet now because it might be a little late.
That's
Hey, it's
awesome.
never too late. It's never too late. But
So
yeah,
you graduate from Rutgers? Did you finish there?
I didn't. So when I had that kind of moment where I wasn't sure if that was what I wanted to do, I was getting so many offers for entertainment jobs, and I had just placed in the Big East as a freshman. And so I was like, all right, maybe I should stick with this. And then I realized, you know what? You need to be number one as a freshman if you're going to do the Olympics. Like, you need to
What was
be
your event?
intermediate hurdles and high hurdles and the 400.
Wow.
Yeah. And
Okay.
so I was like, in my head, I'm a competitor. I was like, I'm not Olympic quality. I need to look at other things. So I had a lot of offers in entertainment. I came up to my coach and I said, hey, you know what? I'm going to bow out for a little bit. And I felt bad because I was taking a scholarship from somebody else.
Right.
And I said, unfortunately, I think I need to go on to something else at this moment in time. And he's like, what are you going to do? I was like, I'm going to go dance.
Wow.
And
It's like
so he was,
Footloose, New Jersey Footloose.
yeah, he was like, what? And so I showed up about a month later on the NBA All-Star game. I had a moment where the camera came up and I like came up and did like a flip right in front of the camera or whatever. And I get this message from my coach, and he was watching randomly. And
Wow.
he goes, I think I saw you the other day. And I was like, yeah, that was me. He goes, all right. Well, good job. I'm proud of you. And that was the last I ever heard of him. But at least there was like some closure to that. But
Yeah.
he had actually shot me a message, and he's like, oh my God, I saw you. But yeah,
That's
from
awesome.
there on, I worked in entertainment for
So where
eight.
did it start? Like, did you go direct professional, like try out for, you know what? I mean,
Yep.
obviously on the West Coast, this is all foreign, right? I knew
Yeah,
kids
yeah.
I went to high school that were in theater. Some went on to do bigger things, but like theater is not a big part of our world, at least hasn't been traditionally out here.
Yeah, and I actually did both theater and it's called commercial entertainment. So like I started off doing like corporate and entertainment events with like pop stars. So I used to dance with like Jessica Simpson and did a gig with NSYNC and 98 Degrees and LL Cool J. So I started with like the commercial dance side and then kind of worked into corporate entertainment. Then I got my first Broadway show at like 21 or 22.
Which was
It was called Dance of the Vampires. It was the most. It was. There's a guy named Michael Crawford who was the lead in Phantom of the Opera, and it was his comeback to Broadway. And it was the most expensive flop at the time ever. Uh, like the sets were amazing, and the show just like didn't mesh. Like you
yeah.
get tons of talent. It's Michael Crawford. He's back. He's a
Yeah.
legend,
Yeah.
and it just didn't mesh. Like it just like just
Yeah.
squashed.
Yeah.
But it was
Yeah.
my first foray into that, and I kind of just jumped back and forth. Like I did Broadway, then I was in corporate entertainment, which was so much fun. Like a company like Microsoft would want to entertain their employees, so they hire a company that I used to work for, and we used to come in and we'd pitch the ideas to the CEO and COO and all these guys, and then our job was to then help them piece these shows together. And I worked with a company called Tea and Jam, and this guy was amazing because he let us have like the baton, like he let us kind of be a part of the creation, which was really, really fun. So we would
Hmm.
create sets that were like playgrounds. So on these corporate events back then, this is pre-crash,
Sure.
they would spend like $2 million on a show for 3 days. So we'd
That's
be like,
awesome.
oh, put a trampoline here, put a fire pole there. Can you put a slide over here? What if we do this? And
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we got to be a part of like the interactive part of building it, creating it, choreographing it. And it was exciting, actually, really exciting. And
So then
then
what was the apex there? Like what was your what was the height of your entertainment career, and then what was the moment you decided like there's got to be something better?
that's a good question. I think I would say probably there's a show called Moving Out. It was a Broadway show. It was Billy Joel, Twyla Tharp. And I was relatively young when they had sought me out. I want to say I was 23. I became the lead of that show on tour. So I did the national tour for 3+ years. So me and actually David on my team, he was the opposite lead of me. So the two of us did Moving Out together. And we toured the whole country for 3 years, saw every state 6 times. And then I left that show. My wife and I got married at the end. We got a dog.
Did you meet her? Was she on the show?
So my wife was a Rockette with my sister. So she did Radio City
cool.
Music Hall, Christmas show. Like anybody who's from New York knows that show just because that was like epitome of Christmas.
Yep.
My sister used to always be like, "Hey, you wanna come to a Rockette party?" And I'd be like,
Heck
"Yes."
Yeah.
So I would go, and I met my wife actually through those situations, through those parties. But we got married at the end of the tour. We went to Japan after we got married on tour, came back to the States, bought a house, got a dog. A year later, had a baby. So like we were out in New Jersey. I was commuting to New York City at the time doing Wicked on Broadway, and then coming back home every night.
Who'd you play in Wicked?
I was like a featured ensemble. So there's a character called Chistery that has like the wings, the monkey with like the jacket. And so it was like a featured ensemble. So we had a lot of solo parts and different tricks we got to do and stuff like that. But it was fun.
Well,
Great
I know
show.
like 4 plays. I'm a big Wicked fan. I'm a big Hamilton fan. A Phantom is solid and Les Mis. So
Okay.
like that's my Mount Rushmore of theater. I went and saw.
Good.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it's funny. I was not a theater guy. I just grew up around it. So I'm probably not much better. So all my theater friends on Broadway used to be like, "How do you not know this? Remember in 1965 when this?" And my brothers and I always laughed because we were always like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Because I
went and saw Officer and a Gentleman. It was terrible.
Oh, really?
At the Smith Center. It was terrible. But anyways, well, let's talk about this. So how did you end up in Vegas? Because I know you eventually ended up down on the Strip. I don't know if Beatles Love was your first thing, but kind of you end up in Vegas, which I think was your entry into real estate as well, right?
Yeah, so your timing's perfect because that kind of aligns right with that time. I was commuting back and forth to New York City. My wife and I looked at each other and we were like, we had a baby. She's working one day, I'm off. I'm working the other 6 days. We're never in the same place at the same time. I visit a friend out in Vegas and see what you get for the money and the weather and all the things we sell even now to clients because it's the truth. And I loved it. And I went back. And when you grow up in New Jersey or New York, you're told it's the best mountains, the water, the pizza, the bagels. So in my head,
pizza and bagels is true. Actually,
it is true. Yeah, it is true. But my wife's like, "Oh, we should move to Vegas." And I was like, "Vegas? Nobody lives in Vegas." I did a million corporate shows on the Strip. I was like, nobody lives there. We visited him again. I went rock climbing, mountain biking. I was like, holy cow, this is like an outdoor mecca. We put our house on the market and we moved out here. And I was in the middle of doing a show called 9 to 5. We did it in LA and it was supposed to come to Broadway, but I had a feeling I'd done a flop before. A flop is a show that doesn't work out.
I
had a feeling, I'm like, I don't know, this is going to work out, this show. And I auditioned on my drive back from LA to New York in Vegas. With my buddy who worked at Love, which is David.
Yep.
And I got a part and I still had this contract on Broadway. But I took it. I just took it and I left. I jumped ship. That show closed 3 months later. And then it was a good move. And I worked at Love for 7 years. And the schedule was so much better. 70 days off more a year than Broadway. Like it was just the commute was nice. As a family, we were together in a place where the commute was nothing. My commute in New Jersey was an hour and a half each way, each direction. That's crazy.
Well, and Broadway, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but Broadway has more of a cultural impact on your life than working on the Strip does in some of those shows, right? I mean, isn't there just like when you're on a Broadway show, is it much more of a like a fraternity or like much more, or is it kind of?
It's an obsession to the people who are obsessed with it. I respect the people there immensely. They're some of the most talented people I've ever met because they can sing, dance, and act as a combo better than anybody. Right. I have a strange opinion on that because I would say some people who are Broadway people would agree with you in 5 seconds. Yeah. I'm very much of the point of view of a Broadway show, a Cirque show, or a Vegas show, they're in the place they belong because that's where they belong for a reason that is far beyond just that. There's an issue in the arts where ballet people frown on hip hop people,
Sure.
people frown on ballet people,
Yeah.
opera singers frown on pop singers, and
That's like religion and exercise. Like
it's
a CrossFitter, to a CrossFitter, it's all about CrossFit.
and
To a
I've
Pilates
always
person, it's all about Pilates.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I've always avoided that because I know from all the people I've met, the amazing people who are so different and so talented in different ways, I know that their talents are so specific that they can't always do that and they can't do that.
Sure.
And so I respect kind of all of it across the board because I've always hated that artistic, hey, you're different than me and you should do what I do because that's what everybody should do. So in a roundabout way, I respect both in different ways. I love Cirque for one reason of like in that point of my life, I was surrounded by people who weren't obsessed about the show. They were just as adventurous outside of the show because they were there for work and to work hard. But when they did things outside of the show, they were just as passionate about it. On Broadway, people wouldn't take vacation for 5 years because that was their entire life.
That's awesome. Well, talk about this. Talk about getting into real estate. And then the two questions I have around that are like, what have you developed? Like, what have you seen as your superpower? And what have you seen as your kryptonite? You know what I mean? Like, what got you into real estate? What have you discovered you're great at? And what would you say is your biggest weakness?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I got into real estate because my kids were getting older. And I noticed I was always leaving when they were coming home. I was always up and leaving the table on Christmas Day, on Thanksgiving Day. And that got old to me real quick because those are the days that are like warm and fuzzy and that my kids will remember. And I didn't want to be absent for those. So I was looking into what can I do where I'm not selling something that people don't want. Like I looked into financials, I looked into insurance, and then I was like, my dad did real estate as a kid. And I was like, you know what, that's amazing. I can put people with things they want and make it the perfect pairing of like a home. Like that's amazing. Like when you're like, hey, life insurance, you're going to die one day. You should get this. I just can't, for me, that's not as fun.
Right. Yeah.
So I looked at that. I was doing the show and real estate at the same time for a good number of years. Like everybody would laugh because I'd be like this on my keyboard. I'd hear the part of the music where I had to get on stage. I would literally go and run away, jump over a car on stage, get back, and then be like, yep.
Finish the offer.
Yes, of course. Yeah. You know what? I have somebody else calling me right now. I'll call you back.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it got to a point where I was working more than on real estate than I was even the show. I was doing like 70 hours a week. Yeah. And my wife and I looked at each other and she goes, aren't you doing this so that you can have more time here? And I kind of just was doing both. And the workaholic side of me just kept doing it. And then one day we said, hey, it's time. I flicked the switch. I had one guy on my team at the time. And Ryan was an amazing person to start with on the team. And I flicked the switch and made the jump.
Well, and you were always doing good production. So was it a lot of like industry entertainment people initially that kind of got you off to a good start?
It was, yeah. It was friends. We would be on stage like jamming, and then someone would be like, hey, I need to talk to you after the show. I'm thinking about buying. And then we
all the things that you don't think is happening when you're watching a Cirque show.
100%. If we wore mics and you guys got to wear headphones to listen to what was going on, you would laugh your butt off.
That's funny.
But yeah, it was very much, and I think I have a soft spot still to this day for all my Cirque people, and I have a couple people on my team, Caroline and David, who are both from Cirque. So between the three of us, we take great care of our Cirque people because that I consider was what made me able to make the jump originally. Yeah. And then I sold Steve Wynn a house like 6 months into making the jump.
How did that happen?
It was a Zillow lead.
Steve Wynn came in as a Zillow lead?
Well, it's his stepson his mom said, "Hey, if you're going to get a house, I want you to find your own agent and do your own
Yeah,
research."
yeah, yeah,
And I'm in downtown Summerlin, and I get a call, and it's like cutting out because the reception is horrible there. And he's like, "Hey, I want to buy a house. It's for this much money." I'm like, "All right, you're going to need proof of funds to get in the home."
yeah.
And no problem. I'm like, "Okay, then
Which we've all heard 100 times, and then the funds never come over, right?
1,000 times." And
Yeah.
I hang up, and bloop, I get a pre-approval for a proof of funds for a very large amount.
Yeah.
And I go, "Oh wow, maybe this is legit."
Yeah.
And then I'm talking to this guy all day, and he goes, "Oh, I'm representing a pop artist," and all this stuff. And eventually I figure out who it is. And the son I meet the next day, and in walks Steve Wynn's wife at the exact same time.
Oh, wow.
And I did my research the night before after figuring out names and on his email,
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
and her son never bought a house, but she said to me, "Brendan, I've really enjoyed this, really enjoyed working with you. I may be needing to buy something for myself. I'll reach out to you." 6 months, 7 months later, she called me and said, "Hold for Steve." And then from there on,
That's
uh,
awesome.
he was amazing, super easy to work with, and genuinely really a nice guy. Yeah,
I'm
it
sure
was.
Zillow wants to hear that story. They'd probably love to know that one.
Yeah, they probably would actually.
They probably market the heck out of that. So then talk about like what's your superpower? Like what have you discovered maybe from your entertainment days or otherwise that has become kind of your calling card? Like what is your superpower in real
I would
estate?
say patience is one. I'm never in a rush with a client ever. I'm never in a rush. I can listen. I'm super patient, never pressuring, and then equally the I guess the skill of chatting and gabbing and like getting to know somebody. I
Yeah,
think a lot of people appreciate that, and I usually try to do it pretty early on with a person, and I
right,
tend to remember those things. Like I remember where they're from. I remember that their son is in hockey, and oh, how's the hockey
right, right,
game?
right,
Like I think that type of quick ability to connect with somebody and then also be patient with their process has been a plus, along with the technical side. So I have a social side, but on the tech side, I'm pretty savvy, and I get obsessed with how things work, how they connect, what the next process is, and then finding those people who know it and having that conversation, like diving
right,
in on it. So going to conferences and finding people like you and Taylor where, hey, I know you're the guy for this. I would love to have a drink with you and chat about it,
right.
and getting that information. I guess that's back to the Gab side though.
Well, so what is your business made up of now? So I think initially it was a lot of, um, people from Cirque and stuff like that. Are you still largely a referral based business? Have you built more of a lead generation and conversion company?
Yeah.
Like where are you getting your deals from? Because you guys, I mean, you're top 75 agent in Vegas. You do a ton of production. Your team does a ton of production. It seems like you skew higher end, as opposed to
Yeah,
the average
believe
the
it or
average number.
not, we're just above the average. I would say we're at like 500, and I think 537,000 is our
Yeah.
average. But
The
we
average
get
in Vegas is like 425 or whatever.
Yeah, so we're on the higher side, but we get high end clients. Like I can talk to a CEO, a CFO, a COO all day long.
Right.
I know how their minds work just from dealing with a lot of guys like that, and I can get to what they want and need pretty fast. But
Right.
on the lead side, we have a pretty big mix of everything from Facebook, Google AdWords, referral, starting to get more social media, except for when we lost our Instagram account.
It's back though.
No,
It's
yeah,
back.
the new
You had to
one.
start from scratch though, right?
Yeah, we had to start from scratch. Yeah,
That sucks.
we're still working on that. We have something that may bring back the old one and combine the two, but
That'd be awesome.
the new one looks better, so we'll just combine them. No, we have a huge mix, and then we do cold calling. We have an inside sales agent department that we just created a few months back. So we imploded our whole process a few months ago, and then rebuilt back up. Not for any other reason than we just wanted a cleaner, more direct process where people got what they wanted faster. without getting hit up by things they didn't want. So
Right.
my brother and I, actually, my brother's my head ISA, or inside sales agent.
Yep.
We
Yep.
kind of imploded my whole database, which was scary, and
Yeah.
then recreated it back. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You do a lot with virtual assistants as well, right? Like you have some employees in the Philippines that do some stuff for you as well, which is a
Yeah.
skill set. I mean, it's not. I mean, obviously, being a resident of the Philippines doing business in America is a skill set, but being an American who leverages the talents of someone overseas is a skill set. Because I know for me, it's I spin out because I'm like, I want to be able to look someone in the eye and show them something on a computer, where being able to manage a team overseas is tough.
Yeah, we got lucky. I have to be honest. Like both interviews for both people. One's a cold calling ISA. The other one does all of our graphics and editing. The interview process was long, and the first 39 people on both jobs were not right at all.
Right,
And I
right,
remember I
right.
was looking. It was me, David, and my brother, and Kylie from our team, and we were just like, "Oh, this is not good." And both times, the last person was like spot on. Adam,
Awesome.
our ISA, has worked for every big company in America. He's worked for Google. He's worked for Salesforce. He's worked for Amazon. Super like inquisitive, smart guy, very well spoken and excitable. So he's learning just with us, and he's giving us ideas. We're giving him ideas, which is like a perfect relationship. And the graphic design side of things, Maxine.
Yeah.
Maxine is sweet, creative, has ideas, and the hardest worker I've ever met. I always get upset with her because she'll start doing things when I know she should be sleeping. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, you shouldn't be doing this right now. You're supposed to be sleeping. She's like, I know, I couldn't get that in my head. And
that's awesome.
like,
did she design your new logo?
She did, actually. Yeah.
Solid.
She did our new logo. She redid our whole new Instagram. She's working on I put her into like a video editing class. She already knows how to, but I was like, hey, would you be interested in like furthering your skills? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. That's so she's doing it even in her off hours. She's like, hey, I don't want to do this during work. Can you just, I would like to do this in off hours. And I'm like, oh, are you sure?
Does she have any friends? Does she have any friends that need a good job? So
in her house, and her family's sleeping, and she's got headphones on. She's like 21 years old. She's amazing. I love her.
She's grinding. That's awesome. So talk to me about your weakness. What's your kryptonite? Like what's the thing you're trying to get better at that, I think we all, part of our culture, which is a terrible part, is that we discount our talents and we obsess over our weaknesses. We refuse to look at the things we do good. We always obsess over what everybody else does good that we're bad at. So, but it's, so I don't love focusing on weaknesses, but it's good to acknowledge them, especially if they're turning into something you become strong at. So what's a goal for you for 2022 as far as something you may not do great right now that you want to get better at?
I like to juggle 27 balls in the air, but I'm a unicyclist.
Yeah.
I see something and I obsess over it and I want to learn about it, and I do, and then I add this and I add that, and I add this and I add that. So cleaner ability to delegate. I'm a very good delegator, and I'm equally, I would say, on the same coin. I can say things and rifle them off because my head's going a million miles a minute, but we're getting better at clarity, like checklists, and our transaction process is checklist crazy. Like it's super organized. Our ideas and like future planning, we tend to do that in nuggets. And now we're trying to say, hey, by this date, hey, by this date, hey, by this date. Because before it was more as the energy came, we did it and just like went all in. I think it would be that like focusing on one thing, getting it to the finish line, and or like kind of picturing it into a pipeline and then getting it done in that pipeline. Yeah.
Well, and I think there's two books that I would recommend. You probably have read them, or if not heard of them, or anybody that's listening. The two books that really have helped to strategize our growth. First was Rocket Fuel, which talks about, you look at every great company that ever existed, it had two key components. One was a visionary, and the other was an integrator. Like Walt had Roy, Steve had Woz. Like there's always, Steve Jobs would set a vision and then Woz would make it happen, or Walt would come up with some grand idea and then Roy would make sure that the money and the systems were in place to make it happen. The challenge with guys like you and I is we try to be both. We come up with a great idea and then we try to integrate it into existence. The other one is
I think that you hit the nail on the head with that. Yeah, for sure.
The other one's who, not how. So much of the challenge is we come up with a great idea and then we map out how to make it happen. The reality is that becomes a really quick way to hit channel capacity, because once we start trying to accomplish everything, we diminish our ability to do anything very well. And we spread ourselves so thin that we hit channel capacity and we actually burn out. So the second thing is once we understand, and you're killing it with all this stuff, but once we understand the rocket fuel, we see ourselves as either a visionary or an integrator. And then we look at which of those two pieces are we missing. So for some people, I think you're a visionary. I think I'm a visionary. We look at and we come up with ideas and we come up with concepts and we want to accomplish great things. The biggest challenge then isn't how do we do it, it's who does it for us. And so it's like one of those things where it sounds like you're killing it with your team in the Philippines. But for anyone that's listening that is in that same process of saying, I've got all these great ideas and I'm trying to accomplish them all, but it's hard to chase them all down. You talk about juggling balls. I always talk about spinning plates. Yeah. Like every once in a while, I look at one of the plates I'm trying to spin is completely fallen. Yeah. And so then I look then the weakness for me isn't how do I become a better plate spinner? It's how do I partner with or collaborate with people who want to spin that specific plate. And so it's like, I think you and I are going through that same maturation process of let's create great things, but let's work with great people that can help it to happen. So let me ask you this, Brendan.
That's a great point. Yeah.
What's your advice for someone looking to break into the industry? I mean, you and I have different backgrounds that led us to the same point in time, same industry, where we collaborate together, we build together. I have no idea what it's like to be on stage. I am actually a fantastic dancer, but like, what's your advice to someone who may be coming from a different background? I know in Vegas, we always get people bleeding in from the Strip, but from people in different walks of life that want to become real estate professionals, what's your advice? Where do they start? How do they get going? What would you tell them?
That's an excellent question. We just had a new agent come to us who's been with another brokerage and or team for 7 months. You're going to laugh at this. She's never once opened a lockbox. She's never written an offer. She's never gone to an open house to shadow somebody. And I just thought that was an insane, like, travesty. Like, how could you be in something and have nobody at least, grab your hand and just say, hey, come with me. I'm just going to show you this, how to open a lockbox. I would say for advice is go with a team or group or brokerage where you can get mentorship and an understanding of the basics of the business and the industry. Even when I started, I was with a local brokerage they had 500 people in their one office. I couldn't get a conference room. The broker said he couldn't help you with an offer. My first offer, I had to wait 24 hours. So I went around and I knocked on every single door on all the guys who I knew were had offices. I'm like, they must know what they're doing. So I just knocked on all doors. One guy was like, oh no, yeah, you should ask the broker. Another guy was like, oh no. And somebody's like, yeah, come here, I'll help you. And I sat down and the guy helped me. And I to this day, I'm thankful for him to help me on that one offer, because and to this day, I think about it. How can someone be given a license and given billions of dollars in inventory to sell, but have no idea what the heck they're doing? Yeah. Like in this industry, this is the only industry where they're like, here's the inventory, because it's all of our inventory. If it's your inventory, it's my inventory. Right. A new agent or you or anybody, we all get the same inventory, and then we're given that to sell. And some people have no idea what they're doing. And I feel like kind of getting rid of that trial and error period on other people. You don't want to trial and error on your mom or your aunt, which are typically people's first sales. Like, you should know and feel confident about every single step of the way, because someone's there to help you, teach you, and kind of mold you in the right direction with your own style at the same time. But I think joining a team or joining a group where you have great training and great mentorship is a huge, huge tip I would tell anybody who's getting into it.
Well, so I've been developing this concept lately, which is collaboration over competition. Like, what's your thought on that? I mean, real estate's a very lonely profession. We're all a bunch of islands. Like, for the most part, if you're doing something well, you're not going to tell me about it. If I'm doing something well, I'm not going to tell you about it because we're so dang competitive. How do we move the industry forward with collaboration over competition so that we can actually help individuals entering the business? The other concern is the people who've been in the business for a long time, who maybe the technology has kind of made it more of a challenge for them to succeed. How do we collaborate with individuals and be bridge builders as opposed to wall constructors?
The big jump I made recently had a lot to do with that I loved my old brokerage. I loved my brokers. They taught me a ton. They really did. They taught me a ton. They were always there. If I called them, they answered texts. But what I didn't feel at any other brokerage I was ever at was that people really were wanting to collaborate. Right now I feel, and this is why, like I was telling you, I'd go to conferences where I noticed, people seem to be a little more open at conferences out of state than they did, who did more numbers than me. These guys are willing to share more than the people I'm down the hallway from. And that just blew my mind because I'm from an entertainment background. If you do a show and I do a show with you, then I know the next show I do and we worked well together, I'm going to recommend that Joe does it with me too, because I know we collaborated well together and we flowed and we just meshed. And hey, let's get him in here too, because we all mesh well together. And that I think comes from openness and willingness to share and know that things move so fast right now. But by the time you tell somebody your little secret, there's already a new secret that you probably don't even know about yet. But yeah, how do we collaborate more? I think it's just by being open and sharing with each other and being willing to share and know that, hey, if someone does a little better than you, now that guy was doing less than you and he's doing better. Hey, now you've got another situation where you've got to one up again. And that was track. For me, if I think back to track and entertainment, there was an endless drive to not just, you don't want to just beat people, but we had rivalries that were what made me have my best times.
They were super good for you, right?
Yeah, I knew if this guy didn't exist, I wouldn't have done that time because I was literally like following his butt the entire way around. And I just had a little more kick at the end. But if he didn't exist, I knew I wouldn't have existed to the capacity that I had. And I even feel that way in real estate when you see somebody who's brand new, and then some of these younger guys are doing an amazing job on social media. They do a great job of portraying their actual personalities online, sometimes fake personalities, sometimes real, but they seem to mesh with certain people in ways that maybe you and I don't understand the same way. But we're learning and we're adding it and we're trying to do it and we're finding the plate spinners that can help us and trying to learn it ourselves. But I feel with my own team, I hope that every team member that's with me, that I collaborate with and work with, and even with you, I hope they can walk away and say, yeah, you know what? I'm really happy that I worked with Brendan because he was so willing to share his time, knowledge, and give appreciation to the fact that we worked together and it felt like a great companionship as far as knowledge and what you walk away with. I don't know. I think it's a matter of openness. Don't you feel like with where we are now, there's a certain openness to making that choice that makes people more willing to share?
I think so. I mean, I always preach collaboration, but there's not a lot of structure around it that supports it, right? It's like we talk about it, but how do we collaborate? Because at the end of the day, we're all still trying to feed our families. I think what I love so much about my world right now is that I'm surrounded by individuals that I admire, and I'm surrounded by individuals that I care about. And people are so good at different things, and so I've just fallen in love with collaboration. I don't find a ton of value in competition. I think there is an elevating principle in collaboration where if somebody is doing something better than me, but they're willing to share with me what they're doing in an attempt to help me be better, knowing that that is probably going to motivate them to take and find the next thing. You know what I mean? It's like, it's this crazy world.
Collaborative competition, because
Collaborative competition, yeah.
Competition in the way of you're not trying to beat each other, but you're equally trying to grow together. And I feel like that's the difference. Is if I want to run somebody over on a track, I don't necessarily have to work with him because we're still in separate lines. And I think what we have the opportunity to do is work together, but we're actually aligned. And there's some competitive collaboration that means, hey, I'm with these people. If I don't man up and act like try to belong and do the best I can to learn, then am I still collaborating, or am I not really giving to the relationship? You know?
Right. Well, if you watch any buds training, like SEAL school, stuff like that, they actually hope people fall off because they'd rather have them fall off there than when they get out into battle. If you look at two individuals trying to climb a mountain back to back, you know, and their legs are crawling up, they're actually pushing against each other all the way up the hill. You know, there is something to that collaborative competition, that collaborative motivation that we have. Like when you see someone achieving something great, but they're also a partner of yours, it elevates you to climb to new heights. Well, Brendan, I can tell you, I'm excited to collaborate with you. I'm excited to collaborate with your team. They're all amazing individuals. That was, I think, the thing that Taylor and I have known you forever, and we've always loved working with you. But when I met the group of individuals you have on your team, it was like, these are my people, you know, all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, but they have like the overwhelming feeling I had meeting with your team was, these are individuals who want to achieve great things by being great people. You know what I mean? It's not like we want to achieve greatness by robbing and lying and cheating and like being jerks about it. They want to use the kindness that is in them to help people achieve their dreams, which in turn is going to help them achieve their own dreams. And it was amazing.
That's 100% true. And I've been fortunate enough to have that type of atmosphere from the day one that I had my team. That's always been kind of our root core thing, is that I've always had people that care. Like my first question on the first people I talked to was, hey, why do you want to get into real estate? When they said, man, I want to make money, like right away, it was like, nope.
Yeah. A lot of money, little time. Well, anyways, Brendan, thank you so much for hopping on. I'm sure we'll have you on again as we continue to grow and collaborate together. But I'm grateful for your partnership. Excited to work with you.
For sure. Same here, Joe. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.